All right. Thank you, everybody. We are going to go ahead and start our Consortium of Cities meeting. It is February 12th, 2025. And as always, we record and archive in case folks can't make it or need to be in and out of meetings and want to catch up on a conversation. My name is Martha Loachman, Boulder County Commissioner. We appreciate everyone's flexibility. We weren't sure. We had some folks cancel early this morning because of the weather and concerns on icy roads and all those good things. So instead of having people be downtown Boulder at 8 o'clock tonight, we figured we'd go all virtual. We are continue to be hybrid, but at least that way folks could participate. So thanks for being graceful on that change. And I heard some appreciation of the flexibility earlier before we started too. So thank you for that. So a couple pieces here from an agenda. I was not at the December meeting, but I know there was some conversation. I got the notes and update from Nick in regards to what we typically do at the end of the year is set up some topic areas for that of our interest that folks might be wanting to hear updates or share what they're working on to be able to support and help other folks in our region. So that did get done, and we came back with some finalization of those topic areas. And so what we're going to do is continue in 2025 the work around how we pick those topic areas, give folks an opportunity to do formal or informal presentations, have some back and forth dialogue in the hopes that we can use Consortium of Cities as it has been in the past for some regional work and regional learning. So just want to give that update. And we did, Nick, that was generous. Nick Robles, who's with the County Commissioner's Office, is your contact and will be for 2025. So just to clarify that, because we have changed staff contacts in the past couple years. So if you do have questions or you're trying to get presentations, like I know Councilmember McCoy was working on getting ahead of time, et cetera, that is your contact from a staff perspective. So just to clarify that and update folks. And Nick has already provided in the agenda for the full year meeting times, tentative locations. Remember, folks can host if they would like to. We just need to know ahead of time. The RSVP is really important because we are host folks are providing food. So it just helps us on the planning and also, of course, coordination for whoever's driving all the presentations to know ahead of time if you're going to be presenting or not. And we are always graceful and let folks jump in. But it does help for the coordination. We've all been party planners for something, so we know the drill. So just want to kind of some logistics reminders for 2025. Let's go around and do some introductions just to make sure folks know who's here. And I'll try and catch people if anyone joins during the meeting to give them an opportunity as well. If your title doesn't tell us where you're at regionally, please add that in there because it's very helpful for folks to know who's participating. Since we're all virtual, I will read out a few names at a time so you know when you're about to be up and just let's do your name and title, and it would be great to hear what in one sentence, and I know some of us are elected, so we're going to do our best in one sentence. Tell us something about where your focus is for 2025, and it could be personal, it could be business, it could be in your in your role. I totally saw that, and I get it, Trustee. Something about where you are focused for 2025, I think might be helpful for us to just be together in the work that we're doing. So I'm going to go from my screen, and I've got Councilmember McCoy, Trustee Kaush. I'm so sorry, Kaush, you've got it right on there for me. Councilmember Fahey. So we'll start with those three.
All right. Good evening, all. I'm Sean McCoy from Longmont, Colorado. And I think there's probably two things. The first thing is with affordable, attainable housing and best fit for locations in Longmont for those. And then the other part is kind of making sure that we figure out how to maneuver with this current administration and keep our employees, our community members' information private, and that we hang on to all those good grants and opportunities that we have had in the past, and that we are able to, sue the community in a positive way.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Hey everybody. My name is Jen Cowish. We just passed our home rule, so we're now council members. That was very exciting for us. It's still strange for me to say it. But I think in our community, I think the biggest focus is housing. We just adopted a housing strategies plan, which is bringing out all kinds of things to address and manage in the community. So we'll be talking about that a lot. And I think just personally, it's just keeping a sane head in response to my husband's in the military and strange times. So, yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Deb Fahey. I'm City Council in Louisville. We're pretty much the same as our previous two. We're very interested in housing, affordable housing, workforce housing. And the current federal administration is causing issues. I'll say my husband works for NOAA in Boulder, so very directly impacted by the decisions at the federal level. But they also come down to the local level in things, if they change things for funding for schools or whatever, it's going to impact all of us. So that's our biggest concerns.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And then we'll go to Nick and then Jonathan and then Sama.
Thank you. Good evening, Nick Robles, policy analyst in the Commissioner's Office for Boulder County, and focus for 2025, I would say, is supporting our community during this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Kane. I am the Town and Zoning Administrator in Netherlands. I think for 2025, I'm really focused on just trying to bring everything together. I'm relatively new here to the town. I've been here about 7 months. We have a new comp plan, new multimodal plan, and a lot of different work we're doing in the community around affordable housing and resiliency, which is really the framework for our new comp plan. And so it touches a lot of different areas. And what we're really trying to do is make sure Western Boulder County is supported and remains a good community of people up here.
Thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Fox, Interim City Manager for City of Louisville. In addition to all the things that Councilmember Fahey said, I am focused on transition as we have a new city manager coming.
Great. Thanks for joining. And then I don't know the correct title for Netherlands. I apologize. Chris, you'll have to tell me the correct title. And then Carla and then Megan.
No problem, Marta. Trustee, we are not home rule yet. There are discussions happening, but we're not there yet. So no, I'm Trustee Larson up here in Netherlands. And I think some of you I've met before. I was the mayor up here from 2016 to 22. So I took a couple of years off and I'm back. And this is actually the first one of these meetings I've been able to attend in a while. So like everyone else, we're focusing on the big regional national issues, the housing, the survival of the churn coming out of DC every day. But and Jonathan mentioned a lot of the big projects that we're doing up here in Netherlands. The other one that we're really focusing on, are keeping an eye on, I should say, is the application for a designated mining operation, DMO, for the Cross Mine just west of Netherlands. So this is a gold mining operation at the old Caribou town site right up a tree line. And so depending on what happens there when the rolling comes down midsummer, it could have a big impact on Netherlands and the Western County.
Thank you.
Shall I?
Yes, please.
I'm Carla Hunter, and I am observing on behalf of the NIWAT Lid Advisory Committee. One of our big concerns right now is businesses closing in NIWAT as a result of rising costs coming from several directions.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hi, everybody. My name is Megan. I go by Megs, she, her. I am with the City of Boulder as the City Council Program Manager, serving as one of two presenters today on legislative topics. And I won't speak for the City of Boulder today, just serving the community is always the top priority. But personally, I'm getting married this year, so focusing on that and being positive.
That sounds great. Thank you, Megs. Thanks for joining. And so then next, thank you, Carl, and then Ken.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Carl Castillo. I'm the Chief Policy Advisor for the City of Boulder, and I am focusing on the opportunities to work on climate action in partnership with the state. And I'll speak a little bit about that here in a bit, especially knowing that we have some challenges in terms of federal support and the lack thereof.
Thank you for joining.
Ken Lenarsic, Town of Jamestown. I have been given a title, but not a salary. So on the website, you'll find me as Town Administrator, volunteer. This year in the Jamestown, we're kind of focusing on building regulations as the county is updating theirs, kind of tied into that. And also fire mitigation, the other subject and things that we're looking at are the requirements that are coming through for mitigation properties. You know, so, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for joining. And I'll just share, I'm personally excited on the emergency service ballot measure. If you haven't seen that announcement and some of the very tangible ways that that tax fund is going to be distributed, Jamestown was a recipient of one of those pieces of equipment. So, which is exciting that voters were able to really move some of this response for both our fire town, like rural fire districts and also emergency services organizations. So, glad to see you, Ken. And I'll just share for me, my focus of work that encompasses everything is reducing the harm of folks who will be most impacted by all the federal changes that folks were noting in all the different ways that people were talking about. So it includes all the work. So thanks for joining this evening. We are here from 6 to 8. I'll try and keep an eye on the clock. Y'all aren't in person, so it's hard to nudge somebody in the speaking and the conversation, et cetera. So I'm just going to ask folks to kind of watch the clock when you do opt to talk and just make sure that we are giving space for everybody. And we've got our topic, and then we'll try and take a break around 7 o'clock just in case someone needs to stretch or eat dinner or something for 5 minutes or so. Our topic this evening, and I just want to make sure I've got all of these pieces on here, specifically, and this is the first time, and I'm in year 5 here leading this group, and the topic around legislation hasn't come up, so I'm super interested to hear the conversation, but the topic was broadly ongoing state issues and current/recent legislation for which consortium members would like to talk about regional support. So that's what we're here to talk about. I did get a couple emails from folks that just had other pieces coming up, both Broomfield and Lyons, that couldn't join us, but they're very interested and are going to be waiting for the recording. So I just want to make sure folks knew that there was still interest. So I'm going to get your help, Nick, on who you've got lined up for presentation. So maybe if you want to give us that order, since you're running, you might be running those presentations. That way people will have an idea of when they're coming up. The ask is to keep your presentation about 5 to 7 minutes so that we have some time for dialogue. I'm really interested in, do we have some multiple support for any of the pieces of legislation? So some of it might just be information and some of it might be conversation after everybody presents to determine what action steps may or may not be of interest for folks. So that's where we're headed in this conversation. And then after that piece, then we'll hear from anybody on community updates or events that people want to invite to, as we typically do. So that's the plan for the evening as far as agenda. is there anything else that people were looking at that we're trying to or hoping to add to the agenda for this meeting before we get into presentations? Okay, great. All right, well then let's, Nick, do you want to give us a guidance on who's up first, second, and third, or whatever the order might be?
Yeah, so City of Boulder submitted the slides first, so maybe we could start off City of Boulder and then City of Longmont and then Boulder County in terms of slides.
Are there other folks that were here and would like to present in regards to the topic of the legislation? Okay, that's totally fine. Yes, Ken?
So I could have a short presentation from the standpoint of smaller, small communities.
Okay. And then I just want to, Ken, when you do speak again later, I'm going to encourage you to speak a little bit louder or get closer to your microphone in case I forget to tell you later, just so we don't lose your voice. Is more for the recording. It's going to be hard. And then Councilmember Fahey.
I also would like to do just a short review or answering the questions that you sent out for us.
Great. Okay. That sounds great. Then let's start with City of Boulder. Just a friendly note, since we're not in person, it's 6:18, 6:19.
That's good. And Nick, are you pulling up the slides? Fabulous. Well, thanks everybody. Like I said, my name is Megan. I go by Megs. I serve as City Council Program Manager for the City of Boulder, and I have the privilege to work with our Chief Policy Advisor, Carl Castillo, on some of our legislative efforts this year. So I will actually turn it over to him for our first item, and we'll move from there. If you want to change the slide.
All right, thank you. And the privilege is all mine, Megs, I mean. Okay, I'm going to speak about a bill that should be introduced in the next 2 days. On-bill repayment is the short name. It's essentially what this is about is making sure that people who need to replace their furnace, their hot water heater, their air conditioner, make insulation improvements to make their homes more energy efficient, have the ability, have the funding and financing that they need. We know that a lot of times there are rebates made available. However, some of these expenses can be pretty significant, and even rebates is not enough for many of us to actually make these improvements. So this would allow, this bill would provide $100 million to be available, and I can explain a little bit more about where that money comes from, so that homeowners can make upgrades and they could borrow the money through the utility and they pay it back through their utility bill. So it'd make it more accessible to more people. It wouldn't even require a credit check so long as you had a clean record in paying your utility bills, electric or gas, it would be available for you. You could pay it back over time, and you could even sell the home before the term is over and have that obligation carry over to the next resident. So basically, the utility bill and the liability would continue with the meter. So whoever buys the home would inherit that, or you could pay it off before you sell it. So anyway, why is this important to our region? Well, because we know that we need to make a lot of changes, a lot of improvements to reduce our greenhouse gas, and that involves a lot of electrification. But this isn't just about electrification. Just anytime you replace your components, your furnace, your air conditioner, they're much more efficient. So just making a regular replacement can really increase your comfort, the performance of your appliances, and improve our environment by decreasing the air emissions. I will leave it at that because I know that we have a lot to go through, and maybe afterwards we can go through some questions.
Great. Our next focus area for tonight is a bill that's been introduced, Senate Bill 25-3, which is regarding semi-automatic firearms and detachable magazines specifically. And essentially what the bill will do is prohibit the future manufacture, distribution, transfer, sale, and purchase of semi-automatic weapons that accept detachable magazines. It does not ban the possession of these weapons or of these items so that folks can transfer them to heirs, etc. There are some pretty limited exceptions within the bill related to semi-automatic weapons and how they are defined within the bill. And this bill's relevance to our region is really about community safety and prohibiting firearm accessories and components that do make guns more lethal in mass shooting events, which are all too common and very personal to many of the communities in Colorado. So really about community safety, and it does advance the 2022 regional efforts that were already underway in the region related to gun violence prevention. Several communities considered some model ordinances related to gun violence prevention as part of a regional working group. So this legislation furthers some of those same gun violence prevention goals and would provide statewide regulations, which would have a little bit more geographic consistency for both regulating and enforcement. So we can move to the next one. Our next slide is about a joint budget committee request, which is funding for the Ridgeview campus, which is a transitional housing and detoxification facility for people experiencing homelessness, and it will be in Watkins, Colorado. It's on the campus of a former youth services facility and has been undergoing remodeling for the past several years in anticipation of opening about 198 beds to serve community members who are experiencing homelessness and need substance abuse treatment. The appropriation request is for $2 million, and essentially it will allow the facility to open on the timeline that was planned, and will also allow for the sooner completion of the remodeling that will allow the facility to open and start serving community members. This is relevant to the Boulder County region because treatment and transitional housing would be available based on a statewide referral system. So folks within all the municipalities represented here within Boulder County would be eligible for treatment at this facility. And we know within the Boulder County Behavioral Health Roadmap, which we discussed last year a few times, unhoused folks are a priority population and definitely require some focused solutions when we think about mental and behavioral health. And the roadmap also recommends capacity building in the areas of inpatient and residential treatment for substance use. And then we will move to the last slide, which is on minimum wage. The first three slides that we presented are things that the City of Boulder is supporting. This is more of a discussion item as our council has not indicated exactly what their level of support will be for the bill that was just introduced today, actually. And what it would do would amend the existing House bill that gives municipalities the authority to enact higher local minimum wages. And for any municipality or county that has already chosen to increase their local minimum wage or will do so before September of 2026, essentially what this will do is require that for food and beverage businesses only, for tipped workers in those businesses within that industry, the tip credit would not just be the $3.02 offset of the local minimum wage as it currently is, but it would be a $3.02 offset plus however much the local minimum wage exceeds the state minimum wage. So for the city of Boulder, that's 76 cents. So the tip offset within the city of Boulder would become $3.78. So this is a way to relieve some of the pressure on food and beverage business establishments. After October 26, 2026, local governments would then have the ability to increase or decrease the tip offset within certain limitations. That the tip credit couldn't be less than $3.02 because that's outlined in the state constitution. the tip credit couldn't decrease by more than 50 cents in any 12-month period. And finally, that any increase in the tip credit can't result in a person being paid a wage that is lower than the state minimum wage with the $3.02 offset that's defined in the Constitution. So those are the main items that we wanted to chat with you all about today. And we, like I said, we're happy to answer any questions. And of course, if you all are interested in any of these pieces of legislation, the Joint Budget Committee request, and would like to engage in any kind of regional coordination or collaboration on support for these, we would be highly interested in doing that. So thank you.
Thanks, Megs. And I saw Councilmember Folkert had joined too, so I want to make sure you have an opportunity to introduce yourself. And if you had additional questions or comments as part of City of Boulder's presentation, this would be perfect timing.
Thanks, Marta. I'm Mayor Pro Tem Folkert with the City of Boulder, and I wanted to just touch in on that minimum wage piece. I think that one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is because through this group we had talked about minimum wage, and all of our councils have had discussions around minimum wage. I know one of the things that we heard a lot was about this tip credit and how people not feeling like the tip credit was large enough. And I just wanted to check in with you all and see if having a larger tip credit would make you feel like it might be easier to adopt a minimum wage for your community. And just kind of see what people's thoughts were there.
Great. And just to clarify, are you asking folks to respond to that right now? Okay.
I mean, that would be fantastic, but if there's another time too, I'm open to that.
I could certainly ask and check in with our businesses. I know that we didn't adopt a higher minimum wage, and the only feedback that I got, I think this might have happened before I was on the council, but just a lot of it is fear-based and not a lot of database from some of them. And so now that we're starting to fill up, we've actually got a good capacity for we had a lot of empty storefronts, and things are turning around in that sense. So I could definitely check in with the chamber and the businesses and get back to you on that. But I don't have a lot of information right now.
The city of Louisville is also hoping to partner with surrounding communities, with Superior, Lafayette, and do it jointly, any kind of minimum wage increase. And the tip concession will be really important, a critical aspect of whether or not that gets through. The restaurant owners that I've spoken with are entirely in favor of some kind of tip compensation in the process.
Thank you. Others? Are there questions or comments about any of the other bills or items that City of Boulder brought up?
I have a question on the energy. I'm sorry, I don't have the slide in front of me anymore, but about bringing the upgrade into the bill. Is that modeled from that's awesome, first of all. It's wonderful. But is that did you see this happen? Like, where did the idea come from? Because I'm immediately thinking of how can we offer something like this as well, or thinking about like a regional approach on that. With a lot of our homes built in the 90s, they're very much due for these kind of upgrades and efficiency. So yeah, just some more background on that would be awesome.
Sure. So on-bill repayment or on-bill financing has been used by other states and other cities with some success. The way it's being proposed here, it would be required for Excel to make this available. It would provide a substantial amount of money for them to make available for Excel customers. For other utilities, they'd have the option of participating. So we'd have the template and the model ready to go for them. So it would be available to all of our municipalities, all of our communities. It would start off with residential. Hopefully, it would expand to commercial as well.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Carl, I do have a couple questions on that from a bill repayment. I've also looked and heard about special assessments, even for individual properties being used.
Mhm.
And just curious, I don't know if you know yet, and I haven't looked at the a draft of that one, I don't believe, on like what is there a range of like, okay, this is anywhere from 2,000 to 25,000? I heard you talking about, I mean, like a roof or a furnace or water pumps, I'm guessing is kind of the focus, but is there a range of how much somebody could have added to the utility? And is there any concern or guidelines that would, I'm thinking of like HOAs in Colorado that have continued to go up significantly every year. Is there some kind of guideline in there that would hold, in this case, your example is Excel, so that they couldn't then change the repayment plan, for an example, to something that then an owner would really have a hard time repaying?
So you bring up a couple topics. One of them is the consumer protection element of it, to make sure that somebody doesn't bite off more than they can chew. And part of creating this bill and creating this program would have the energy office develop those consumer protections. And it generally speaks towards the need for making sure that we have trained and certified people who explain what they're doing and explain what the payback period would be. How long do we expect the item to last? If it's a furnace, is it a 20-year period? So a lot of times the repayment would be equal to the expected longevity of the appliance that's being installed. In terms of the actual amount, and I do think that when we get up to like $5, $10, $15,000, that's probably where this is probably most useful, where there's going to be a lot of people who simply just can't pay for that up front. And there are possibilities that, especially if you're doing like an installation project, that your cost would go down so much that you're actually going to be paying less per month than you otherwise would, because you've had an improvement made that costs you less per month, and it more than offsets the upfront costs. So long answer, basically, there's consumer protection elements that are created, but I don't know the specifics yet. But we do recognize that as a major concern, to make sure that we're not creating more liability for people than they are aware of, than they should be able to hold, and that they can be expected to manage.
Great, thank you. Any other? Oh, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but I believe that the sort of repayment would be set up front. So they wouldn't be able to change sort of your pricing along the way. It would be a fixed, more like home mortgage or that kind of a thing.
Yes, that's exactly right. It would be lots of explanation to consumers so they know exactly the amount they'll be paying on a monthly basis. And that would not be subject to change, just like any other loan that you would take from a bank. The difference is here you'd get more favorable interest rates than you would get from a bank, because the money is being made available for a public purpose. And yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for the presentation from City of Boulder? Great, thank you. And I'm hoping, I think Carl said it too, hopefully we'll have some time for some discussion once we've heard from everybody. So great, thank you so much. Next presenters, City of Longmont.
All right. So if Nick brings this up, I'm going to go shift over to my slide there. And so the first slide is just our standard city slide. And so let me just make sure he's got that up there. Okay, and so now I can go. So go ahead and click Nick, if you would. So this is just our kind of an overview of our legislative process. We start getting updates from our assistant city manager, Sandy Cedar, and her staff January through May. And, obviously there's a whole litany of bills that come through, some that affect us more directly than others. Then we hear from the Colorado Municipal League on different aspects, whether they support those or not, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. But Sandy always loops in the if the Colorado Municipal League supports it or not, which is good. And then we post this before our meeting on our city website, and so then the community can take a look at it, and maybe they find issues with it, that maybe the stance that the staff is taking is something they disagree with, and then we'll hear a variety of different emails in regards to that. And then the next slide, if you would click it, Nick. This is a city work plan that we use, and I don't think you can see all these little things, and I'm sorry, my eyes are not that good that I can see all these little parts here, but we have, climate action, and this is at every council member's workstation at the dais. And in February here on the 28th, we're going to have a council retreat, and we readdress these things. We established this kind of little building here as kind of our imagery for how we address all of our issues around, along with core services and equity, safety, and sustainability, and then working up through the different columns there. So Nick, if you'll click on the next one. And then this is just kind of an example of how we do things. These are recent bills. So the first one is House Bill 25-1045. And this was authorizing for local governments to generate additional fee-based funding on local vulnerable road use protection strategies. And you can see that the council direction on this was based out of the Vision Zero initiatives, and that staff recommended this to that council support this. And then the next one, as you can see there, I won't read it for you. It has a different sort of spin on it, and this did not get approved, but it didn't get unanimous support like the previous one that you saw there. And so you can see this is how we approach things. In every council meeting, we get a series of these that we are to look at, and then we see if we get any community feedback and other things like that, like I said before. And then to kind of answer the questions that Nick sent out, we are dealing with the current legislation that's before us, and we want to support some of the regional concepts that we're dealing with here. We have something kind of unique at our one of our meetings, and once a month, and that is before our Longmont Housing Authority meeting. We have a council sort of reporting meeting where it's filmed, it's open to the public, and each one of us reports on the boards and commissions that we liaison to, and then talk about things that might be coming up, that might like getting feedback on whatever the issue is that might be concurrent to what we're doing here with the Consortium of Cities. And then Nick, if you click on the next one on that, again, this is what we see in our packet. We get the council comm, and this link here takes you right to our different legislative issues that are going on there. And that's basically it. We just have a, if you click on the next one, Nick, this is the in the council comm, and then that's Sandy Cedar, our assistant city manager's information. If that's not how you do it in your community. Right now, we are dealing with a variety of of legislative actions. We did take action on uh, the gun issue. I mean, this near and dear to my heart as a Students Demand Action advisor at Monarch High School, but that's something that has not been something that in Longmont just a little bit more conservative a community, and so there's a certain sense of that uh, which bills Sandy might bring forward and what things we might then pursue on our own as members of council. And then I think that's about it. Any questions?
Thank you, council member. Any questions for Longmont?
I have a question, but I want to say I'm going to steal your idea for putting the mission in front of all the council members. That's really awesome because I think sometimes we get on our own path and might forget what we're focusing on. So
It's really helpful, and just we always revisit it at every council retreat once a year, and we do other things, to reach out to the community. I was on council in 2007, 2011, and at that time we brought about coffee with council, and that's a Saturday activity that is really helpful. Once a month, two members of council go and to somewhere. It might be a city facility, and it might be a community facility, and we bring our microphones for the community to be able to hear. Last one I was at was pretty contentious, but it had some 50 people at it, and we talked about all the issues around minimum wage and other things, and around a council member's absence from the community and these sort of things like that. Then of course we have twice a year a open forum for the community to come in, and everybody, we get to do a little back and forth with members of the community. So that's kind of handy. And then of course the normal standard emails and other ways of communicating with people. But I know this is about the legislative part, but you seem to be kind of interested in that aspect of it, and it's really, really. I think these were really positive things for the community, and I was on there when we started that too. That was one of the things where we were always trying to figure out how do we, communicate better with our constituents transparently.
always.
Any other questions? I know I was the one, I have to admit, I was the one that, asked us to maybe come together at this time as we move forward, to go and look at, what type of legislation we might want to talk to our representatives at the National League Cities if people are going to that conference. And everything kind of flew out the window when all of a sudden 2 weeks ago, we get a memorandum saying that all of our funding is being froze. And so then that starts to go, well, of course, Joe Neguse and our two senators are going to be like, yeah, duh, we're going to have we're going to have to deal with these things. So those sort of things, anything that might have been specific kind of was like kind of eclipsed by all that. And so last night I brought to be added to a future agenda with Longmont a request to develop an ordinance around protecting our employees' data in regards to their private information, if that somehow has been breached, or former employees, as well as just being kind of very concerned about our bond rating in regards to maybe some punitive action, because here we are in Boulder County, and is it possible that they're going to take another run at that memo that they did 2 weeks ago and come up with some way of saying, well, you guys allow recreational marijuana in your communities, so we're going to not let you proceed with any of the rest of the funds, federal funds. I mean, they've got to be looking for some sort of thing like that, and that's our biggest concern. Or such a slowdown in all these federal departments that then we can't get our bills paid on these bonds, these matching funds and things like that, because they've been so stripped down of employees and have tactics that were used to harass employees and other things like that, like we saw in the National Public Radio story today about that. Then that might cause us to have an issue with a contractor in regards to how quickly we paid them, and we might be breach of contract, which then would cause problems for bond ratings and things like that. So, I'm very concerned about that. And so some of you might see that in the paper tomorrow. They did a story on that today, interviewed me today after that. But that might be something that we're going to have to talk to our congressional representatives about, protecting us. So maybe that's useful.
Great. All right. I don't see any additional questions right now for City of Longmont, but some of those pieces might come up when we get to the point where we can talk about all of these items together. Boulder County is next. So I am going to, one of the items that City of Boulder talked about is part of what we're going to talk about too. So I'm hoping that maybe there's some regional interest. But I will let Nick turn that on, and then I will go through the ones I've got the list in front of me, but I don't know if it is the same in the presentation. And I'll just go ahead.
Okay, 1 second, let me pull it up.
Oh yeah, that's fine. And then after Boulder County, then we'll hear from Ken, and then we'll hear from Council Member Fahey. Thank you. So there's a couple of these similar to what City of Boulder talked about that don't have bill numbers yet. So where we have them, we'll share them. One of the items that was really a strong priority of mine in 2021 was language access internally for Boulder County as an organization. I like to do the work internally before we ask others to do it and go out externally. And so really proud that we've got staff and have been doing a significant amount of work, not just with language access, but also plain language connected to some of the other items that we've been focusing on. This bill, we've supported some other language access bills last session as well. But I'd encourage folks to take a look at HB 25-1153. And again, this is additional work in this space this year. And really proud of our staff who we've done a lot of work with, and Nick's been part of that as well, in helping folks who are the experts, our subject matter experts in different departments, support for testimony, going through the process, knowing what to expect. And so that's been really great. And Octavio, who runs our language access program, was testifying yesterday on this one. The assessment described in the bill will determine the state department's ability to achieve language access standards developed for the state. So this is a focus on the entire state. The $100,000 cost for the assessment is a part of what is being asked in the set aside for the governor's budget request. And obviously we're supporting this one as a member of the Colorado Language Access Coalition, and also just in our priorities in the work. And there's the note for Octavio Gomez. So that is one item, and be really interested in. There might be some coalition around that one. So next slide. This one is lodging tax, and it sounds like there was some conversation in December around this idea. It does not have a bill yet, so we haven't looked at a draft together as a Board of County Commissioners, but there are conversations going on around that. So I'd be interested if folks have some interest in the concept on this one, to increase the maximum allowable county lodging tax rate from 2% to 6%. And this would be subject to local voter approval. the idea here is that it would expand the use of revenue. And so some of the items that are on there, and I'll read a couple of them just for people who might be listening to this later as they move around the county. What's listed there would be public infrastructure maintenance and improvements, preservation of natural landscapes and wildlife habitats, cultural and historic preservation, and enhancing public safety. So we can talk about that one again just to see. And the difference between home rule might be different for folks in the way that they can or can't use lodging tax. So I'm interested in that conversation as well. And of course, that is different for cities and counties as well. So we'll go into the next one. This one is inclusive emergency alerts. Similarly, there's not a bill number yet because it hasn't been introduced. This one is, we've been in, we do a lot of work with and this group has been part of our emergency operations in doing work with Mike Chard and his team. And so we're getting feedback from them as well. This would provide inclusive emergency alerts. The language will be amended into Senate Bill 31. The draft language is being led by Representative Elizabeth Velasco on this one. And we're supportive of the intent, and obviously we're still waiting to see that final draft once it's introduced. And the only piece on feedback that we've gotten on emergency management from emergency management staff that still have some concerns with the redrafted language connected to federal regulations. So that's kind of what we're trying to sort out in regards to giving some last amendments on there for the proponents. So that is providing inclusive emergency alerts. So again, thinking about some of the work that we've done in emergency preparedness as a large group, that might be some interest in that one to be cohesive. And then the last one I won't spend a lot of time on because City of Boulder talked about SB 25003, but I did hear what sounded like so far in the conversation connected to the gun violence prevention work that June of 21, we were asked to just have a special meeting of Consortium of Cities. So folks who were here at that time know that. And for otherwise, it was just a special session that was asked to be brought to us after the mass shooting in the city of Boulder, working as elected officials to really figure out where that space was. And I think it was Megs maybe that mentioned some of that work at that time to really look at a regional approach the same way that we've done for housing and other topics with this group. And so this one could also line up in that area. If folks are interested in getting involved in any of these bills, just from a logistics standpoint, we do have a policy team at Boulder County and can help with testimony if it's not for you, but folks that you're working with that you're trying to bring into the conversation, learning how to testify, using their expertise. It could be community members of any age and any stage that just want to understand how they can use their voices in this legislative session. So that is the offer. And I think that was the last one that we had. So great. Thank you, Nick. So we have Ken, and then we have Councilmember Lewis. I was reading at the same time. Councilmember Fahey, excuse me. So maybe what we'll do is we'll have Ken share what you've got, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll come back and hear from Louisville. And then we should have some time to be able to really have some dialogue about what the intent around the topic was, and maybe are there next steps and or what would we need to do to decide that. So Ken.
Yeah, I'm ready. Can you hear me
Great.
okay now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. I've got a few bills I'd like to throw into the mix to get some reaction to. One, of course, is Senate Bill 001, which is the bill that has to do with elections and making elections available to all persons. The problem with it is that it may be difficult for smaller communities or for even for any local election to meet some of these requirements. And CML today had a call out for testimony regarding this particular bill. And well, I don't think they want to oppose it, but they would like to see it get revised or modified or amended to the point where there might be some relief for some of communities uh, for for local elections. So that's one.
And can I
Yeah,
interrupt you for just a second? Because I want to put in the chat, but I don't want to put the wrong one. If the one that I heard you say 25-001 is the Colorado Voting Rights Act. Is that correct?
that's right.
Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat for you while you're talking.
Okay. Well, that's one bill I would like to see some consideration or at least get some reaction to. The other one is House Bill 25-1071, which seeks to move funds from the marijuana tax cash fund, the public school capital construction assistance fund, peace officer training and support fund, and the affordable housing finance fund of the state, and then spread that money around through 50% of the money would go to Colorado's 64 counties, and the other 50% would be distributed proportionately based on the size of the communities. Yeah, I don't know. No, the CML did oppose this bill, and it may die in committee. But I just want to let people know that it's out there. That some of the money that you voted for to put into special funds for particular uses might get spread around and be distributed for almost any lawful use. And the third one is a bill that maybe won't affect anybody but Jamestown, or I think, is that the current threshold for an exemption to audit is $750,000. If your municipality didn't spend or take in $750,000, you can ask for an exemption from the audit. That there's a bill is Colorado Senate Bill 0. That's a Senate Bill 25023, and that would change that threshold from $750,000 to $1 million. So more communities would be able to take advantage of the lower cost of it, not having a full audit. The other bill is the Senate Bill 25037, which is the coal transition grants bill, which would take money from the severance tax, which a lot of us get money from the Department of Local Affairs for severance tax, and take some money from the severance tax to be distributed solely to governments that are affected by shutdown of coal mining and coal use. And so I think while it says they want to help, they want to help. This bill seeks to help those communities which would be negatively affected by reduced or diminished coal reduction. They were taking the money from the rest of the governments, and I would think that everybody would oppose this bill because they'd like to see the playing field be level for this, because coal is not the only mineral or the mineral impact type material that affects communities in Colorado. And the other and the last bill I have didn't have a number, but it's the Open Records and Meetings Act, and I think it just changes the posting requirements and gives some additional extensions to that. I think that CML still wanted to do some amendments to it, but I think that's something that I don't know whether or not it's been been um, whether or not it's been admitted to the or it's been or it's been introduced at this point. But just the fact that it's out there, and that's the last bill I have for consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Ken about the different bills? I put the ones that have a number in the chat if anyone was looking for.
Okay.
No questions right now. Okay. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. So it is 7:02, so let's take a 5-minute break. The best case scenario is we get done early tonight. So let's just take 5 minutes. So you'll hear my voice come on back at 7:05 and we'll start back at, or 7:06 and we'll start back at 7:07. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. All right. Councilmember Fahey, we'll get your presentation going. Did you have PowerPoint slides or not? Or was it? Okay, thank you. When you're ready to start, that's great.
Okay, we just had a couple of things. We're talking about our legislative agenda, and we're very focused on home rule, and we're also interested in community recovery and resiliency. After going through the Marshall Fire, we're doing a lot of planning for emergency situations. Tax and finance policy, we are, as everybody, talking about how we're going to collect and manage our tax income. The big things on funding are advocacy to maintain federal funding programs, especially considering the federal mandates coming down right now. We want continued transportation funding that focuses on multimodal connectivity and clean air standards. Continued funding for cybersecurity for the nation's critical utility infrastructure. Resiliency funding for areas with increases in frequency and intensity of natural disasters such as FEMA, HMGP, and more. Continued funding for sustainability and minimize unfunded mandates. We actually, as a council, have mandated that every decision made at the council level in the city has to consider both the sustainability impacts and also the DEI impacts for every organization in the city. So we are doing a lot with language options. All of our programs, all of our online labels, everything has connections to other languages other than English. Printed copies are always English and Spanish, but if you go online, you can connect to just about any language you want. In the housing, the two bills that we're really interested in are the housing, HB 24-1313, This bill responds to the need to provide more housing options in areas close to transit. The city is updating its comprehensive plan to identify areas for increased development with the plan to work toward compliance with this bill. A consistent approach to how cities are attempting to comply with this would support the issue, with particular emphasis on how to address residential density requirements in the bill that are significantly more than the community might be willing to accept and may strain infrastructure like water supply. The other bill that we're interested in is the digital accessibility, House Bill 21-1110. This is the reasonable standards for compliance and provisions of support. For example, non-compliance can open a city to legal risk. However, granted licenses for a system that helps the transition into compliance are expiring, and cities must find a way to fund this transition and add it to their workloads. All support accessibility with reasonable timelines and support from municipalities. Our biggest emphasis, I guess, is working as the community, as part of a larger community, and having all of the surrounding communities come together to work. That's the way we're going to get more emphasis at the state level on what will work for us. And so that's all.
Thank you. What was the bill number of the first one you said? I apologize. I was going to put it in
The first one was House Bill 24-1313.
Thank you.
Housing.
Okay. I'll insert both of those. Any questions for folks or from folks? I will put the two that you just talked about here in the chat in just a second. So we've got some time. This is a good place to be at. Sometimes we're running and trying to get more pieces in there, but I heard a few different questions. And so I think what would be really helpful is there any coalescing? I'm always going to suggest that we focus on a smaller number versus a whole lot, because that tends to, somebody's going to have to do the work. If we go down the route of we're going to have a subcommittee, so those pieces. But I think first I'd love to just hear if there's interest, and I see you there, council member, so I'll be with you in just a second. Just by a emoji or a physical something here, if you are super you definitely want to do some action around advocacy on some type of legislation, like that's here. And it might be, this was informative and this is going to be helpful, and maybe we should continue doing this as part of our discussion as consortium. So it might not be it, I want to do some action. If you're wanting to go back to your council, because I heard someone suggest that, go back to your councils or your trustees and boards and have the conversation about what could the role of consortium be. Like maybe that's kind of, I'm not interested, but I'm not committed to an action. And then if you feel like I don't want to do any action, but this was helpful, but no committees, no extra time, et cetera, then that's probably the best indicator. So could I get just a reaction in general about additional action equals work equals we got to work through whatever that might be, from a absolutely yes, no, and not for this group? I feel like kind of in the middle, not yet determined if you want to do action. Okay. So we've got 1% for sure does want to do some action, at least from what I'm seeing, and happy to hear responses on the income. But first, Councilmember McCoy, did you have a question before we get some response?
Yeah, I think it was along that same concept of in regards to the Boulder issue around the gun bill. I think people probably do want to have a conversation about that. And we all kind of felt a little stymied, about a year or two ago about that. And I think it might be a great time if this is the new, well thought out angle. Maybe it's time to come back to it. But I don't know. I mean, I don't want to let these things slide away. It just seems like somebody must have thought this through at that Senate bill. And if that Senate bill, they're trying to think, is if it's not going to get shut down or closed down by the courts, I think that would be great to have some conversation about that and see how our communities would like to proceed with that. I know Boulder Valley has some things going, but St. Vrain, I know that some folks here with the issues around gun advocacy and control are really having some struggles with St. Vrain's approach to not even allowing certain information to be put on their website. So it's just something I think we could, maybe have our councils have some sort of conversation about and then come back and talk about.
Thanks. So what I'm hearing is a proposal to do some action around the gun violence prevention legislation that was presented tonight. Okay. And then Mayor Pro Tem, I think, was next, and then Councilmember Cowish, I believe you were maybe going to come off mute. So, okay.
Thanks, Commissioner Loachman. I have found this to be helpful, and just hearing, the 4 or so other bills that other communities are interested in, or and given how many bills there are and that there was actually some overlap between us, I think shows that there is actually maybe quite a bit of alignment. I bet if we had 10 bills, we'd see a lot more alignment around what we're all interested in. I think, we have a fairly robust advocacy strategy, and I think that, for us, for me, it's probably more about taking this information and making sure that I'm, bringing up some of these if we haven't talked about them to our committee and things like that more, and just bringing this information towards what we're already doing rather than a bunch of additional separate meetings. But I guess I'm open to other ideas. That's just my 2 cents for the moment.
Thank you for the just reflection on the conversation. Councilmember Couch.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on the gun or weapon legislation. So the town of Superior and I believe Louisville, I don't know if it's the city of Boulder also, but we're in the middle of a lawsuit over legislation that was passed over 2 years ago related to weapons. And so while I think there would be, at least from my community, interest in collaborating on that now, I don't think there's going to be any space for us to do anything like that now. So just some feedback for you, Councilmember McCoy. The silence is because we're in the middle of a lawsuit over that already. But I will say one of the top things that we're dealing with, even though I didn't do a presentation per se, was Councilmember Fahey's point to the transportation-oriented housing is kind of all we're talking about. And I definitely see some overlay there and working together on that particular issue. I don't know where that will go, but I think that would be a top priority for me, and seeing the regional approach to that here, which I think we're already kind of working on avenues towards that, but to have the state kind of mandate come down, I think our community is a little concerned about just it being specifically assigned to areas that don't really make sense for our community. So yeah, I think I definitely see some crossover there, some work to do in that one together.
Thank you. I'll share from my perspective as one county commissioner. I think the conversation is super helpful, similar to what others said, just to hear where focuses might be. And I heard some folks mention CML, and similarly for the county side, we do advocacy and legislative work and legislative subcommittees in regards to when the session is happening through county commissioners acting together, CCAT, through CC4CA, through the Metro Area County Commissioners, MAC, and also through County Commissioners, Inc., I think is what it's called, CCI. So for me personally, but again, I wasn't in the meeting in December, and I do think there's some benefit just to hearing what people are listening to and looking for. For me right now, I feel like there's the advocacy work and is happening from the county perspective in other places. Right now, I think if there was something that comes forward through this session, this would be a great forum to bring it to find out if there's a need for advocacy from the region. But I feel like otherwise, I'm involved in some other regional work and also doing regional work here in the county. So both at county commissioners, but also specifically for Boulder County. So that's just my initial reaction as well. Any other thoughts? I'm trying to think of who we might have missed. What about Netherlands?
Can't say we as a board have given it any thought or consideration yet.
Okay. Which I think connects, for me, what I'm hearing, it connects to someone else's comment about could we take this information back to the boards and councils and just talk about what this could look like if the rest of our boards and councils say, yes, we do want to use consortium and some kind of advocacy around legislation, then it might be different. Councilmember McCoy.
I actually, when I saw Christopher there from Netherlands, it just dawned on me I had a question for them about their ski area, plans, and I thought, how far are you into that, and that sort of thing. I'm just kind of curious to see how, if you can talk about it, what's happening.
Well, sadly, we really can't talk about it. We're still sort of in the NDA phase of it, and our basic board direction has been whenever we are asked by other elected officials, by the public, by the press, we point them to Jonathan Kane, who's also on this call, but he's playing point on this.
All right. Well, it's an interesting prospect, and
what I can tell you is we're really motivated to really think about different and more progressive ways to really support Western Boulder County. There's some challenges up here in Health and Human Services land, and also just in being a community here. And I think that something like this could really allow us to achieve goals that allow that community to remain in place. Western Boulder County is a really fun place to play, but it's also a place that people live and have lived for generations. And we need to support them as much as we possibly can. Because not everybody who lives up here is a multimillionaire. There's a lot of people who are really just struggling day to day to make it. The other thing about this is that ski area is a really important asset, not just for Netherlands, but to Colorado as a whole. It's very difficult to teach your kids how to ski these days for less than $5,000 or more, depending on where you go. And that's sad. That shouldn't be how it is, especially in Boulder. We have this asset that's right here in the heart of our community. And we think that by managing it through a municipal lens, we can bring a really progressive model of what a ski community might look like, where we have affordable housing and better childcare and better transportation options for people, and where we can make sure that the people who do that work can live where they work. Because we have a lot of people who are coming from very far away, like Aurora, to work up there now because it's just difficult to be a lift operator or something like that. And so I think really that's really the crux of this project is to try to find a resilient way to support this community up here and to achieve some of these goals. And I think there's a really good opportunity to do that right now. I think you see it all across the nation and what's happening at Vail and what's happening in other ski resorts, and how we need to just rethink this industry and make it sustainable. And that's the other piece of it, is just aligning to our sustainability goals here. It's long been important, the environmental kind of things that happen up here and throughout Boulder County. But by managing it with this municipal lens, we can also bring those policies to them. They have this thing called their Play Forever campaign, which is basically the way that they've been looking at global warming and things like that. But it's a really good model for us to build off our own sustainability goals, which we've had for decades, and really just think about what happens as industries change, like what happens to this space, which is still critical wildlife habitat. And the other kind of nexus here is Toland Ranch, which is right next door. It's largely in Gilpin County, but it's huge amount of open space. And there's some interest in the state to like maybe create a state park there. So we're really thinking about the Indian Peaks Wilderness as a whole collective wilderness area, and just thinking about how we make these like really critical decisions to make sure that our kids can see what we see now when they come up here in the future.
Well, I really thought it was a great idea. And it was one of these things where that if for some reason some component of it wasn't quite there or complete, or people change their mind and fall apart, I really thought that a regional approach could help too, because it would support you guys, and I really think you need it. And I've had several students from Netherlands, and I think it's high time we help our neighbor, and just also if for some reason there was some issue, I think it'd be great, because everybody in Boulder County could have a stake in it and give, and yet you'd be the great big winners in the sense of finally getting something that really could help your community. And then the other side of the thing, the rest of us would maybe be able to get some sort of regional recreational aspect out of it. So keep that in mind if something starts to fall in some category, that there is some interest in with other communities in the Boulder County region.
We want to bring this to Boulder. That's the thing. We are really working hard right now to be really good regional partners. And we know how small we are, and we know, small but mighty, hopefully. But that's kind of our goal. We want to make sure that we are participating in this conversation all the time and bringing regional assets, because that's what we're talking about. Like you said, it's a regional asset, and we want to
I'm just so excited for you guys, and I thought it was great. And I just wanted to shout that out at this last moment here before we head off. But I just think that there's some that if something were not to quite bring the puzzle together, it might be a conversation that we could all have too.
Well, thank you. If we have that opportunity to talk about it, I'd love to bring that forward, because we're really thinking about this as how do we keep skiing a thing that our kids can do in the future.
Absolutely.
And how also that place may be a great place for like BVSD. Jefferson County has Blue Sky and a couple other places they take kids for outdoor recreation and education as a part of their curriculum. This could be another opportunity for something like that. And that's another thing we've been talking about, is how do we, bring that space just into our collective.
Yeah. Well, I have several students that are because I'm a teacher in Boulder Valley, that are on the ski team and everything. So I think you guys are right on track. So,
well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. It's great to know we're not alone in this.
Great, thanks everyone. On the next steps in regards to legislation, can we close that piece? And I want to check in, Carla, too, since you're here from NIWAT, I want to make sure you get a chance to share any reflections before we make a decision here.
Well, I can speak from my personal point of view, but I really don't think I can speak on behalf of the local Improvement District Advisory Committee, which is probably more appropriate. So thank you. I'll pass for now.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks.
Are we, I was looking at the kind of the reactions on the screen, but I don't want to misinterpret anybody. What I'm taking away is there was a little bit more of this versus for sure action. And I think And I heard a few comments just in like this has been super helpful and it's educational and there's some interest in taking the topic back to councils and boards to maybe determine if there is more legislative action specifically that folks are wanting to see consortium of cities members put energy and time into. Does that feel like it's capturing, or did I miss anything that somebody heard? Okay, thank you for that. Okay, great. I appreciate that. On our agenda, the next, just to make sure it's on folks' radar, April 2nd is the next consortium meeting. The topic is sustainability, and what was chosen from the conversation in December is sustainability. That could be huge. That could be a lot of things. So sustainability, what does that mean? Trash, recycle, and compost. And then we would like to invite, there was also an ask to get an update in regards to the regional minimum wage, just from an update. And it was mentioned tonight too, so it sounds like there is some interest. I would love to just make sure that people would like to spend some time in getting that update. And Jonathan, is that your hand for me?
Yeah, I can wait a second.
Okay. So just about the minimum wage and the update, and it might be in April, that might be a legislative update too in regards to that bill, depending on where it is and what's happening. How many people, just from a show of hands, would be, yes, I'd be interested in having a minimum wage, or I don't want to use consortium of cities time to get the update? If I could just see some, I've got a couple of yeses. Carla, was that a question or is that a yes? Question, go ahead. Oh,
Sorry, I was muted. It's a yes.
okay, thank
There
you.
would be more interest in discussion.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I saw 2 yeses and then 1 no. Did anybody else want to respond? Okay, so we've got 2 yeses, so we'll make some time in the agenda just to get the regional update. And it doesn't mean that we're putting extra energy and there's no additional subcommittee or work required. But that's just to help us make sure that we've got folks ready. Thank you for that. And so we've got time. I'd say maybe let's spend 10 minutes. First, Jonathan, your question. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, if we do talk about sustainability, could we talk a little bit about if guidelines for the sustainability program are changing and what that might include? So that has been the topic that we've been discussing here in Nederland for like county funding. And I just wanted to make sure that I understand kind of like where that is going.
Will you tell me more about that?
Yeah, it just sounds like there's been some conversations at the county level about changing requirements for towns and cities about what needs to happen to continue to receive sustainability funding. And I just want to make sure I understand what that looks like so we can make a plan for those discussions to happen here at the local level for what that might include.
And which sustainability funding are you speaking towards? Sustainability tax?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I can make sure that we include that from the county's presentation.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks for that ask. Okay. So that's for April. Let's spend maybe 10 minutes max if anyone's got updates. I'm sorry, events. Events that they want to share. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Folkerts.
So if you happen to be in Boulder tomorrow, we have a couple of bike to work day events happening in the morning at Ampersand Coffee and in the evening at, I believe, Full Cycle. Megs, correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then we're through our Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan process, we're going to be doing this really interesting thing that I don't think has been done locally before. We're doing a community assembly. So we're talking about 15-minute neighborhoods and having sort of general community members weigh in. But it's just a really interesting process. We're going to have an information session on it on February 24th that's virtual. I can put the link in the chat. But I just wanted to share that out because it's a kind of a unique public engagement process. And if anyone else is interested, it would be a good opportunity to get more information about what that might look like.
Isn't Winter Bike to Work Day Friday, not tomorrow?
Sorry, I am a day ahead in my week already, so thank you for giving me back Thursday. Yes, that will be on Friday at Ampersand Coffee and Full Cycle.
The only reason I know is my office, Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics, is hosting one of the breakfast stops. So
That's great. Thank you. Councilmember Fahey?
Thank you. Yes, we have a couple of things in Louisville. Tomorrow, the 13th, the library is having their Active Minds session, and the discussion in honor of Black History Month is going to be about Muhammad Ali. And then on Saturday night, at the Center for the Arts, the museum is going to be presenting the movie Harriet, which is a story all about Harriet Tubman, from getting out of slavery to all of her activities with the Underground Railroad and all of the things that she accomplished in her lifetime. And then if you wait until March 13th, so a month from tomorrow, that Active Minds group is going to be talking about Marie Curie. So you can come and listen about her too.
Thank you. If you have any of those links that you want to put in the chat, feel free. And Councilmember McCoy.
I don't
Okay.
have the links, but you can go to the city's website and get them. They're all, I think, at 7 o'clock in the evening.
Great, thank you.
Okay, just two things. We want to toot our horn about Ride Longmont. It's a new program. It's really reasonably priced. I think it's like $2 a ride. And if you're a senior or under 13 or so, you can ride for like $1. You might have to share the ride with somebody else, but it's a great way to get around. We have, I believe it's I have to count the vans. I think they said 6, but I could be wrong on that. I have to take another look at that. And then we have a Picasso presentation at our Longmont Museum with 60 pieces of Picasso's work. So just if you're interested and you haven't been to Spain and seen some Picassos, well, now is your opportunity.
Great, thank you. Jonathan?
I just have a really quick thing. We've been working with Boulder County staff and been awesome in transportation space, building a new pilot program here in Nederland for transportation. It's called the NedRec, and basically what it does is it goes to all of the outdoor places in town. So it goes to Hesse and 4th of July Trailhead, it goes to Eldora, it goes to our hockey rink, and then it kind of loops town. And it's been a really cool pilot program that a lot of people have ridden. And so I know it's very easy to take the bus from Boulder, but if you guys want to try it from up here, it's also kind of a cool experience, and just trying to promote that a little bit.
That's great, thank you. And Councilmember Cowish.
Yeah, I think this is more of a thank you, a bit of an announcement, but a thank you. So, you know, the fires in LA have really impacted our Marshall Fire Recovery community, and that I spent a week there a couple weeks ago, and I'll be going back every month working with their local government and resident groups in the community. But so many people there have connected with so many people from here in a way that is just like they know who we are in this recovery for them, because there's been so many folks that have just made themselves available. And it's just a wonderful feeling to be in this community and see that kind of outreach and organization that's coming from our own neighborhood, some of whom aren't even back home yet. And I want you all to know that that's happening. It's really, our residents are just, it's amazing. So thank you for any of you that are also connecting with people over that, because I know the council in Louisville and the unincorporated folks are linking up with leadership there as well. So thanks.
Thank you for your work and your leadership in that space too.
Can I add on to that, that our Public Works Department went to Maui and then to LA to help them with their recovery plans and becoming more sustainable. So
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. The items I'll add in and share for folks from county, we have our upcoming town hall is on February 20th. So it's next Thursday. It'll be in Lyons at the Lyons Town Hall. The topic is going to be on wildfire mitigation. So just want to share that for folks. All residents are welcome. If you don't know, we go as county commissioners to all the different places around the county. And so I think we've made it to everywhere now. So and are repeating kind of some, but trying to get into different actual locations within each city and town. So that's coming up on February 20th. That's at 5:30 p.m. And it also gives people an opportunity to meet commissioners in the evening versus in the mornings or during the day. February 25th, that's a community meeting in regards to compost. There's a compost feasibility study. So I know that's of interest for some constituents. And so I wanted to share that one. That one's in Boulder at 1901 63rd Street. So that must be the recycling facility. And then the other one, Councilmember McCoy talked about the Longmont Museum and the current kind of exhibit that's happening, and also want to just share that on March 6th, as part of the Longmont Museum events, Thursday nights, there's always something going on there. The Humanize program is happening, so it's a panel in regards to the topic of immigration. So if folks have questions, I've been in a lot of different community meetings, and residents and elected officials have questions about what immigration is, how it works. And so that group has been putting on different panel conversations around the county since last year. So that's the next one coming up March 6th, and that's at 7 p.m. at the Longmont Museum. So just a couple items there. Anybody else have an event they'd like to add? Yes, Ken?
Yeah, our event was, our event was today when we received the Boulder County Emergency Services Grant for a new Type 6 brush truck. This replaces a vehicle that is about 40 years old and doesn't run too well. But it also gives us the only vehicle that we will have that it's a crew cab and will actually hold 5 firefighters going to an emergency. So all of the credit has to go to our fire chief, Seth Strickland, but we are all very grateful for this grant. And looking at all the grants that went out this morning, I think they all went to really good purposes and really is going to help the county in the event of emergency, particularly fires and so forth. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Why don't you invite us when the truck arrives and we can do a celebration with you?
We'll promise you a ride in that truck.
Absolutely. I love it. I will show up. If you invite me, I will show up. So
okay. All right.
Okay. That's so great. Oh, Carla?
I would love people to be have NIWAT on their radar, especially this year, because it's the sesquicentennial celebration of the planting of NIWAT. And there are a number of exciting events all year, as always in NIWAT, but they'll be more thematically focused on the 150th. So I just want to mention that to everybody. There's a party on March 30th, an open house, and it sounds like it's going to be a ton of fun. So it'd be great if you guys all showed up.
That's so great. And that makes me think of this Saturday on the 15th in Niwot, there's an open house at Jeff's Barn. And it's an open house that both Jeff Walcott and Dustin Wolf will be there giving some information. If you don't know, the restoration of some of the sculptures of connected to American Indian and Native American work has been happening. And so that'll be an opportunity to meet the artist who's doing the restoration on those sculptures. And that's this Saturday. So thanks for saying Naiwa. I knew there was something in my mind. Great. Okay, everybody. I am pleased to say that you have 16 minutes of your evening back to yourselves. Appreciate everybody joining. We will see you again on April 2nd. Nick, thank you. Staff, thank you for being here in the evening. All of us as elected officials sign up for all of it, but we can't do the work without the staff. So I just want to make sure you hear that from all of us as elected officials in your region. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening and stay safe.